Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. Here's your flash briefing for the week of October 9th, and we have a lot going on this month. The city of Lee Summit is hosting a blood drive today from 10 to 4 at the city's maintenance facility located at 1971 Southeast Hamblin Road. The Community Blood Center says now more than ever is the time to donate. Find a link to register on our Facebook page at City of LS. Walk-ins are welcome. City Council will meet for regular session Tuesday night at 6 in Council Chambers in City Hall. If you can't watch, quickly catch up on City Council meetings by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Sweep the Summit is October 14th. Help tackle litter and debris on our streets and in our streams. Volunteer for one of 2 environmental activities, Street Clean or Stream Team. Recycle Fest will also be taking place that Saturday at the city's maintenance facility. Find more information, including waiver forms, registration, and acceptable recyclable items at cityofls.net/sweep. Are you looking for a change of pace in your career path? The City of Lee Summit is hosting a career fair and expo October 18th from 2 to 7 p.m. at the Gamber Community Center. The city offers rewarding public service jobs in a wide variety of fields. At the fair, engage with hiring departments, network, learn about open positions, and land your dream job. Explore career opportunities at lspeople.net. Join District 3 Council members Phyllis Edson and Mayor Pro Tem Beto Lopez for a town hall on October 19th at the training facility at the Lee Summit Police Department. Receive an update on major projects and visit with department representatives. This town hall is a come-and-go event. Unable to attend, the meeting will be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel. And the city, in partnership with the Missouri Department of Transportation, will be hosting an online public hearing October 3rd through the 17th for the Missouri 291 North Interchange at US 50 Highway Improvements Project. The public can view project plans and exhibits, submit comments, and ask questions. The project is estimated to begin in late summer or early fall of 2024. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914 Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
I'm like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as the co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, someone, please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. Say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well, then we found a support person and they responded immediately and we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
This month's Council Member Spotlight is all about Mayor Bill Baird. Check it out.
I have always volunteered in the community and I was always really involved, but then I ran for school board. Whenever I got done with my term, I just felt like I had more to give. It's always been my goal from day one is to get everyone in the community connected and working together, and I always called it a spirit of community. Well, mayor's 24/7 and I have a job. I've had to work really hard at compartmentalizing, is what I call it. So during this time, I'm going to do work. During this time, I'm going to be mayor, even though I can get a call at any moment about mayor stuff. And so I've had to even work that much harder at setting aside time for myself or for family. So I like to exercise, I like to work out. Hillary's my wife. She actually goes to work out with me as well. And we do like to go downtown to the shops. We make sure we maximize our time together. I mean, I've got 2 kids as well, and we spend a lot of time with them, or whatever time they will give us these days. And I have a dog. I think most people kind of know me know I have to have a dog. We have so much development going on, and we're growing fairly quickly, so we have a lot of infrastructure needs, and sometimes we have gaps in infrastructure, and we've always managed to get by, but with this kind of growth, we're really having to be creative and look at our options and just have a good plan for water, sewer, roads, and more. If we want to grow the most healthy way, we need a diverse economy. We do have a lot of retail that's opened up here, and there's been new construction for retail. We really need to focus in the future on bringing some, well-paying jobs here, good, strong employers that want to be located in this incredible community of now 101,000 people. A lot of our workforce does commute to work still, so they leave Lee Summit to go to work, and it'd be nice if we could keep some of those citizens right here in our community. The times I feel most proud are actually when I'm in the community and I see the community come together.
We have Buddy in the house. Mr. Mayor!
The tree lighting is always very fun. I always feel very proud. It's just a great warm feeling. The same thing goes for when the council will do something and we come together and make a good decision together. There's been a few of those that you go home feeling like a winner. And one of them was when we put together the downtown farmers market, when we bought the land, and it became real, all that hard work. But also the Diversity and Inclusion Commission, that was months and months of discussions and conversations that were really hard to have, and we went ahead and moved forward and as a council all together, and I was very, very proud of that. And there are a few things that the citizens have done that have really helped us tremendously. First, in the middle of a pandemic, they passed a use tax, which is a way for us to collect sales tax whenever someone purchases online. That helps shore up our revenues so that we can continue to provide as high quality services that our city provides. And it helps us take care of our employees, it helps us with our public safety and more. So I can't be more thankful to the citizens for that. Lee Summit has the opportunity to have a major impact on the economy in the Kansas City area. We already, as an economy, are rolling along with such a high median income. We have an amazing workforce here that are paying taxes, they're paying property taxes, they're paying sales taxes, they're keeping our economy rolling, and we really are getting the attention of all our neighbors. And I think that what's going to happen is you're going to see the opportunity for us to really get everybody's attention when businesses start moving here, bigger businesses and more so. You should try to find a way to give back to the community, whether it's at the city level, citizen committees, or just participating in some of our community conversations whenever we have those opportunities. It's worth coming out of your shell or taking that leap of faith and just showing up and saying, what can I do or how can I help? The more that we do this together, the more wonderful the community is.
Thanks for watching the Lee Summit Rundown. I'm Laura Ingeman. See you next time.
Next up, TMP 2806, an ordinance approving Transportation Alternatives Program funding agreement between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission related to the public improvement project designated as federal project number TAP 3001, Ward Road improvements from Blue Parkway to O'Brien Road within the city limits of Lee Summit, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same. Sarah Boschert. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Sarah Boschert, Senior Staff Engineer. So this is an agreement between the city and MoDOT to accept federal funding for the Ward Road Improvements Project. This project will reconstruct approximately half a mile of Ward Road between Blue Parkway and O'Brien Road and includes the installation of bicycle facilities, sidewalk, street lighting, enclosed stormwater, and intersection improvements. The Mid-America Regional Council announced a call for projects to compete for federal funding through the Missouri Transportation Alternatives Program, and the city staff submitted the Ward Road project as a candidate for the funding. The project scored well because of the safety improvements that are part of the project, as well as the addition of multimodal elements and proximity to activity centers. And as a result, the project was allocated $900,000 for construction work. And the funding will become available in fiscal year 2025. And so this agreement just allows the city to accept those funds. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council? Well, it's self-explanatory. So, but what is the project date? If we get to 2025, possibly?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's when the funding becomes available for construction.
Okay. Well, Sarah, I don't see any comments, so I think we'll just ask for a motion.
I move to advance to council for approval TMP 2806, an ordinance approving a transportation alternatives program funding agreement between the city of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission related to the public improvement project designated as federal project TAP-3001015 Ward Road improvements from Blue Parkway to O'Brien within the city limits of Lee Summit, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second moving TMP 2806 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Edson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor.
Aye.
Thank you. That's 3 ayes moving TMP 2806 to the full council. Next up, TMP 2807, an ordinance approving modification number 1 to an agreement for professional engineering services for the Ward Road improvements Northwest O'Brien Road to Northwest Blue Parkway project RFQ number 2022-040 with Walter P. Moore and Associates, Inc. for an increase of $106,670 for the amended basic services with an amended not to exceed amount of $550,985 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same. Go up, Sarah.
Sarah Boschert, Senior Staff Engineer. So this is for the same Ward Road project that the previous ordinance was in reference to. This is a modification to the design contract for that project. So Walter P. Moore is the city's design consultant that we're working with. And as we've worked through the design, there's some additional scope items that we would like to incorporate into the project. The first group of them is related to the federal funding that we just discussed. So as the project was allocated federal funding, the consultant will need to prepare additional environmental review documentation and submittals for MoDOT review. And so this modification includes scope for them to prepare that documentation associated with the federal funding process. And so in addition to that, it also includes additional plan sheets and right-of-way and easement documents that were determined to be necessary during the design process. And the additional plan sheets include plans for modification to an existing box culvert located within the project limits based on an assessment by the consultant under the base agreement. And other than that, it also includes additional scope for some sanitary sewer design that was directed during design by the Water Utilities Department. Questions?
Councilmember Edson.
Just for clarification, so does the 100,000 out of our budget or is it part of this federal funding?
That would come out of our budget because the federal funding is for construction.
Okay.
This is for design.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Does this have anything to do with the trees? If you're driving down Blue Parkway and you look back east, there was a bunch of trees and looked like some modifications to something that stormwater. Is this part of that project?
I'm not familiar.
Okay.
I believe what you're referring to is some clearing that has happened for the sanitary job associated with McClendon Ditch that extends really on that east side of 50 Highway up around the church, all the way to the southwest, down towards Hartman Park.
This is completely separate then. I would entertain a motion if there's no more questions.
Here.
Yes, Councilmember Edson.
I move to recommend to council for approval TM-2807, an ordinance approving modification number to an agreement for professional engineering services for the Ward Road Improvements Project RFQ number 2022-040 with Walter P. Associates for an increase of $100,600 for the amended basic services with an amount not to exceed amount of $500,905 and authorizing the to execute.
Second.
You have a motion by Councilmember Edson, a second by Councilmember Pryor, moving TMP 2807 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Question, seeing none, roll call please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Edson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor.
Aye.
Thank you. That's 3 ayes, moving TMP 2807 the full council. Next up, TMP 2795, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a cooperative service agreement by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, and the United States Department of Agriculture, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services, Wildlife Services to cooperate in a wildlife damage management project and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same. Joel Arrington.
Good evening, Joel Arrington, Airport Manager. Currently today, the airport consists of around 553 acres of land, and as you can imagine, at any given time, we've got some type of animal or bird flying around the airport or on the airport. And this is as you can imagine, it's a significant risk to aircraft that are coming into land, take off even while they're on the ground. Any encounter with wildlife between that and an airplane is not a good thing. So there are lots of things that we do every day to help deter wildlife. Some of them are very obvious. We have a wildlife fence to keep the larger ones out, and then we are constantly mowing the grass to keep birds and coyotes, those types of things out, geese. There's also another way to handle this, and that is, and it's a widely used method, and that is to remove the food source of the animal that's causing the problem, the ones that are hanging out at the airport. If there's nothing to eat, they'll move on. And in our case, we've got a constant population of red-tailed hawks and coyotes that are in the area, and their primary food source are mice, rats, voles, those types of things. Small rodents basically that are on the airport. And so this agreement with the USDA is to come in and apply a rodenticide to help remove those rodents from the airport. And we've seen a good track record with this in the past, where we applied it and it worked well. And so we're going to have them do it again. Historically, we have done this. According to our SWIP plan, it has to be applied per the labeled instructions. And the USDA is really the people who have the equipment, not only to apply it, but the safety equipment to use while they are applying it. So we think it's best that they do it rather than our staff, who doesn't do it very often and doesn't have all the right PPE equipment. So our plan of action is to apply it to about 110 acres each year. So we'll move around. So it'll take about 5 years or so to get back around to where we applied it before. And it takes about that long for rodents to come back in. This is applied at other airports here in the Kansas City area, so this isn't anything new. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions from the council?
So many questions. So, well, when I read this, I was like, I feel like we did this, but what we passed before was for them to do the study. So this
Right.
is the result of the study, right?
Yes, that is one of it. Yeah. So there was a study that was done. It was a few months back. And of course, they work pretty closely with the FAA, and the FAA recommends that airports take, whatever measures that we need to remove these threats from the airport. And birds and coyotes are they're a problem for any airport.
Got turtles.
Only the big ones. But yes, the migrating turtles are something that we watch out for. You bet.
Okay. And I would imagine that with some of the development going on, that you may see an increase, especially with the coyotes. Can the deer jump the fence or no?
They can jump the fence in some places. I mean, the fence is tall, but there are some places where the ground comes up a little bit. And of course, we've got 6 outfalls on the airport, so deer and animals can get through those outfalls pretty easily.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, we do a lot to mitigate the wildlife.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have any types of delay? If a plane comes in, they see something. Do we have any instances, or very many instances, of them going around, letting the airport staff know that there's a deer runway or something?
Normally, if it's something that caused a go-around event, they'll definitely come and tell us. And of course, any tenant on the airfield that sees any type of wildlife like coyotes, they come and tell us immediately. And in those cases, like we're always getting the call about the coyotes, and that just prompts a call from us to animal control to come out and help us with remove a coyote. So they're usually pretty good about. They don't want to hit them either.
Oh.
So.
No more questions. I would entertain a motion.
I move to recommend to council for approval TMP 2795, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a cooperative service agreement by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, Lee Summit Municipal Airport, and the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services, APHIS, Wildlife Services, WS, to cooperate in a wildlife damage management program, and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Pryor, a second by Councilmember Edson, moving TMP 2795 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. No discussion. Roll call, please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Edson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
3 ayes, moving TMP 2795 to the full council. Next up, TMP 2801, an ordinance approving the award of RFQ number 2023-058 for professional engineering services for the Pryor Road Phase 2 improvements, Hook Road to M150 Highway, project to Affinis Corp., in the amount of $1,100,978.95, and purchasing or authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Nakia Chapman-Freiberger, Senior Staff Engineer. So this is the design contract for the Pryor Road Phase 2 improvements project. This project was created to improve safety and operations along approximately 1 mile of Pryor Road between Hook Road and 150 Highway. The project was approved by voters with the 2017 sales tax and is on the Thoroughfare Master Plan and Greenway Trail Plan. Key components of this project are roadway widening and the addition of sidewalk, shared use path, and street lighting. We issued an RFQ for this project. We heard back from 3 firms. We ended up interviewing those 3 firms, and after a review, we selected Affinis as the most qualified for the project. They provided a scope that's within the project's budget. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions, council? Councilmember Edson.
I feel like Affinis is new. I don't think I've seen it before or very much.
I believe we actually have an on-call contract with them to do survey for the city.
Yeah, they're an on-call surveyor. Affinis used to do quite a bit of work for the city of Lee Summit, and I think the last major project they did was Ward Road South, county line to our South City limits would have been the last major road project they did. But they've done some other major road work in the past for us.
I'm always glad when we get new people coming in and doing business.
It's been quite a few years since they've done a major road project for the city.
Good. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I don't have any questions, so I would motion.
Here.
Yes, Councilmember.
I recommend TMP-2801 to council for approval, an ordinance approving the award of RFQ 3-058 for professional engineering services for Prior Road Phase 2 improvements project to Affinis Corp. In the amount of $1,100,978.95 and authorizing the
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Edson, a second by Councilmember Pryor, moving TMP 2801 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Roll call, please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Edson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
Ayes, moving TMP 2801 to the full council. Next up, waiting this for a year. Always exciting. Presentation of the FY24 snow plan, Sean Groff.
Good evening, Sean Graff. I'm Assistant Director of Public Works Operations. Thank you for giving me a little bit of time tonight to discuss our upcoming snow program. We try to get in front of a Public Works Committee every year and kind of let them know some of the things we have changed or improvements we've made and solicit feedback along the way. This is going to be kind of our roadmap for where we're going tonight. A lot of these slides you probably have seen in the past, but as we go through them, I'll try to go through some of the recent changes we've made, and obviously questions along the way. Feel free to ask questions, and I will also leave questions. One of the things that we get asked quite a little bit is, what's the winter going to look like? And I know Councilmember Edson has asked, do we have the prediction for the upcoming winter in years past? And so there are a number of places that we look at. This one is the Farmer's Almanac. They credit themselves by being pretty accurate. The thing that's kind of funny, I think, is you notice how the weather patterns follow state lines, and we all know that the jet streams and the high and low pressures make that happen. So I have to kind of saying that facetiously, but we have to kind of take, I think, it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But the Farmer's Almanac is looking for a cold and average snowfall, which would be somewhere around the 20-inch mark. So they also have a old Farmer's Almanac. It is older than the other one, but I think both of them predate all of us in this room by quite a little bit. But the old Farmer's Almanac is saying it's going to be snowy this year. I tend to probably trust National Weather Service probably a little more than some of those other previous ones. But with that being said, everybody knows that a 9-10 day forecast is a little bit difficult to be real accurate on. And usually they say about three days out is about as good as they can do. So this also can be taken with a grain of salt, but this basically is running from December through February of next year. And on the left-hand side, it's showing temperature outlook. See Missouri, especially Kansas City area, is kind of in the tan shaded which just means that it may be higher or higher temperatures than normal, what we normally see. What that means, I don't know. It's probably not a whole lot warmer, but somewhat warmer. On the right-hand side, you can see we're kind of in the middle section is colored white. We have equal chances of snowfall or precipitation during that time. And snowfall is probably not the right word for that, since we might be warmer than normal. It could be potentially rain rather than snow. So that's my weather prediction for this upcoming winter. I'm usually pretty good at letting you know what transpired around March. Got a pretty so. One of the things that we have in our snow plan is a goal, and we I like to present this to City Council, and of course, if there's folks out there that are watching this, and our goal is to provide the City of Lee Summit is to provide adequate mobility and safety for a properly equipped and prudently operated vehicle within a reason. And so, what we're trying to state there is, part of this is on us. We've got to get out there and get the roads plowed and get salt down and get melting started, but also realizing that there is a time to stay at home and there is a time to get out and about. And the other thing would be to make sure that your vehicle is ready for weather. We are in the Midwest and we do get snow, and slick tires or rear-wheel drive fast cars that are fun to drive in the summertime are not always the best option when it snows. We want to do this by providing a high level of customer service, and we do this by proactively pre-treating all streets before a weather event, provided that the event starts as snow and not as rain. So we will put either a salt brine mixture down or rock salt down to get a little bit ahead of the game. We have levels of service once the snow starts falling. We treat and plow our primary roads first, which are our big 4-lane roads. And they are usually the ones where all the fire stations, hospitals, and police stations reside. Then we move into our collectors, which are essentially residential streets, but they're more the cut through streets that go through subdivision. And then finally we get to downtown. We operate within available financial resources, so every year we budget for the upcoming snow year, not really knowing what we're going to see. Use anywhere from a 3 to a 5 year average. The snowfall back on it can be pretty erratic. Get really heavy snows for a long time, and then, as we've seen here lately, they've fallen off. So we use an average to budget every year. Then we want to ensure that we have an operational balance for the city and our employees. So we want to be able to be here and be responsive 24/7, but we've also got to allow our employees time to rest. And so we operate a 12-hour shift between 7 a.m., 7 p.m., 7 p.m. in order to give our employees time off. So we've made a few little changes here in regards to our residential snow plowing priority. Last year we went to a different philosophy on our residential streets. So we used to plow, treat everything when we reached an inch of snow. And the problem with that can be, especially in residential, get an inch of snow and we get a lot of cars on it and snow gets packed down. And we drive through there and our plow runs across the top of and you'd see a very, very little amount of snow actually being plowed off. And then we put our salt down on top of it. And we get a lot of complaints that you didn't come down our road, but a lot of times when you drive down those roads, you can see a little bit of a wind. So we went to a 2 hours, get salt down a lot quicker. And when the sun comes out and the temperatures warm up during the day, we get melting. I think that's actually helping us a little bit quicker than what we've seen in the past. Because in the past, we were making sure we hit everything curb to curb, all dead ends, all cul-de-sacs, and it just took time. So we've rearranged the levels a little bit. I'm not going to get into them too much, but level 1 is essentially a treatment or Level 2 is where we're probably normally going to be operating within, which means that we'll probably be plowing the primary roads and collectors, but we'll probably be just treating residentials. We do get a few heavier snows usually every year. What happens this year, but when we get into those, then we'll go into levels 3, 4, 5, and they obviously will take more resources as the levels increase. And like I say, I'm going to try to go through these pretty quick, but if you have questions, please let me know. This is the equipment we have. We have 10 big dump trucks, and I'll kind of talk about them in a little bit. 11 1-ton, 6 3/4 ton pickups, and then we've got some equipment when we start getting into the higher levels of snow removal. Staffing, as far as staffing goes, it takes a lot of people to run a shift. We have anytime that we fire up our snow desk, we have managers, supervisors, we have snow desk operators, and we have a number of folks that are either in loader, put the salt from the dome into the truck, or we have operators that are driving the. City Council did approve expansion of 4 full-time employees for the FY24 budget year. We are in the process of getting all those positions filled. We currently have 1 position open. We're hoping to have that filled by the end of the week, or at least have a commitment by the end of the week. So we've done pretty good as far as keeping everybody staffed. Have a lot of new employees, so we don't have the experience that we had 5 years ago. But what the extra employees allow us to do is put more of our own folks in trucks. It will decrease the demand on other departments, sending us volunteers, and so I think it's good all around. As far as our infrastructure goes, we have 2 salt domes. We have currently had them full. We have close to 6,000 tons of salt on hand. The brine system is up and running. A couple of new things that we added last year was turn-by-turn routing, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a little bit, and a public-facing map. So you've seen, like I say, you've seen a lot of these slides before, but back in fiscal year 15, we began outfitting dump trucks with brine applicators and wing. So we determined that it needed to be done as they were replaced. Going back and adding the equipment to vehicles was not going to be cost effective. When these trucks are upgraded, it increases our capacity, the amount of salt that we can put in them, so that reduces the amount of trips that we have to go back to the shop and fill up and go back out to our routes. Allows us to put liquids on all of our trucks. And so I'll talk about the liquids here in just a little bit too, and what that means and how that helps out our process. We went to stainless steel. Anytime you get salt and metal together, you start getting rust, and so we went to stainless steel beds, which gives our beds and spreaders a lot longer life. And then we've been able to increase efficiency with that staffing. So here's a picture of one of our new trucks. You can see the bed's all stainless steel. Right now, what we do is the salt that we put in the back of the truck just goes into the dump bed. The bottom of the dump bed has a conveyor in it, and then it dumps it into a spreader that hangs out on the end of the truck and spreads the material. It allows us to put a lot more salt in the truck, and places where we had a slide-in spreader before were kind of a deep bottom spreader, and so we do get a larger salt capacity. Every big truck now has wing plows on it, and it gives us a little bit of extra width running down the road. So instead of having to send 4 trucks, now we can send maybe 2, take care of the same amount of area that we were before. And everything, it had all of our big trucks and our 1 tons has the ability to distribute liquids. This is just a picture. This is one of our first 3 that we upgraded. And these are 3 of our bigger trucks with wing plows. Just real quickly, about the same time we were working on the upgrades to our trucks. We also was able to add a conveyor system to our salt domes. It's been a great addition where we were spending months before putting salt up in the springtime. The truck can just dump in a pit now. Done with it. Move on. And folks can worry about mowing and litter and all those and spring weeds and all those other things. So it's been a huge time saver for us. The salt brine system, it came along about the same time we were upgrading the trucks and putting the conveyor in. We currently had a salt brine program, but it was a process and a reservoir that we had to hold the materials once we made them. We're able to go ahead and pre-make 40,000 gallons of salt brine, and it goes down pretty quick. So we the capacity along with the ability to make salt brine very quickly in this system, it has the capability of doing. So essentially, the salt brine is just supplied. The truck on the left has a big tank in it. They don't all look like that, but it's just a 21% salt mixture that gets sprayed right onto the ground when it's dry out and it's not terribly cold, and it just dries in place. And snowing, it activates that salt that's already dried on the ground, and it starts the melting process. And this is kind of what we've seen in the past. You've got a cross street going right to left that had a salt brine applied to it, which was a collector road, and have the street that's going back into the cul-de-sacs, which did not have treatment on. And you can see as the snow falls and activates that salt, it puts, which creates melting. So it just gives us a little bit of a head start. It breaks that bond that the ice may have to the road. Not going to spend a lot of time. We've had on this. We've had AVL for a number of years. AVL just tells us where snowplows are. It tells us what they're doing, what direction they're going, how fast they're going, what's going on within. Gives us a little better quality assurance because we can go back and look. The new system that we have is a lot more reliable. The old system that we were using before was a third-party add-on trying to make work. This one integrates right within our controls. No plow and the salt spreader with. It's the same company that utilizes them, so it's kind of a plug and play, and there's a lot less parts to break along the way. So this is just a demonstration. This is just one of the ways that when somebody calls and says, did you plow my street or you missed my street? And we can go back and look if we were actually down that street or not. And so this is just one of the dump trucks, and I've just selected a time frame. Let the report run, but it will show everywhere that truck has been. It drops it drops a pin every so many seconds, and so of course the faster the truck goes, the further apart but we can tell with relative body street. That's the nice thing about this system. The other thing, there's a lot of reports that we can run. That one is probably the most interesting as far as putting it into a presentation. The rest of them are kind of like this. They're kind of report form. But we can tell how fast they're going. We can tell is a front plow up or down. We can see how much salt it's contributing. We can tell how much liquids we're putting out with that salt. So all these things are available to us at the office. And so when somebody calls in and says, we missed your street, there's a lot of things we can go look at without actually going out to see. A lot of times when we hear miss my street, it's because there are a lot of cars parked along the side of the road and we are zigzagging around. I'll be the first to admit it does not look good go through there, but that's what we got to deal with at 2 o'clock in the morning or whenever we're out there. But like I say, this gives us a pretty good indication of whether we've. The next one, which I believe is been a huge success is turn-by-turn routing. This was actually implemented first time last year. It was a custom-built system that I have to give kudos to ITS and then manager Bruce Taylor. And they worked a lot of hours on this to perfect this and make this thing work correct. So I mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of new folks and a lot of folks that do not have the experience that we had 2 years ago. Nice thing about turn-by-turn routing, I can give iPad pretty much any individual. Within a few minutes, we can show them how to find the route that they need to go to. They can click go, basically give them turn-by-turn directions, just like Google will, to the point. It gives us arrows that tells us to turn. It has his voice tells us to turn. So it was pretty successful last year. But one of the things that I really like about it is it'll make you go down every street. Not going to be the option of, well, you know, I've been plowing for 3 days and I've been in this route, and I remember I went down that cul-de-sac, but that was the pre-treatment time I went down it. It wasn't the plow or the treat time. So it'll make you go down every street unless you physically cancel it. So it gives us another piece of quality assurance that we've made it to every street. So the public facing website, and I apologize, I need to update the graphic in this. We are using our snow tracker mapping system, GIS, as a public facing website. This was actually pulled off of our AVL program last year, and we've been working with them to see if we can kind of come up with some type of public facing map. But right now, we feel like our snow tracker system is a lot better. Our snow tracker works when operator calls in that they have completed a route, and we put that information into our snow tracker, and it's a database that also is tied to GIS. So once they've done the turn-by-turn routing and went through the route and they've got it all done, they call that in, call that done, and then it will section that it's in. So right now it's somewhat live. The only issue is it's going to show it's not done when we start it. It's going to show it all done when we finish it. We feel like it's pretty accurate, and it's something we can kind of stand behind and defend. So with all that being said, we've implemented a lot of stuff over the last years. Thanks to the City Council for approving a lot of funding for us to make some of these upgrades. But over the years, we can see that minutes per lane mile, the city has grown, but we have been able to lower the amount of time that it takes us to go from one end of town. The snow rodeo, I want to thank all of you for attending. We just had it back a few weeks ago, and I guess it's almost been a month. We had 83 employees participate in the training. We had a new rodeo course this year. We were trying to figure out a good place to have it where we had facilities and wanted to make it more real, I guess, where we come back to our shop to load salt, how you do get more brine, how you do that. We also had a piece where you had to log into the iPad and snow route. I feel like it was kind of more realistic in that sense, and then also we can still work on our driving skills. So these are not all, but most of our top 10 dump truck drivers for this year. Most of our top 10 one-ton drivers this year. I say most because some folks ran out of there. We do want to thank all of you. I was able to capture some of you with my camera out driving. Friday. But we do want to thank you for attending and participating and your support, Public Works and snow operations. I also wanted to mention City Manager Dunning, Assistant City Manager Elam and Weber, who also were out and about during the day and attended, and we appreciate it. So upcoming, what we can see here in the future, we are going to have a dry run event or a mock event held on April the 24th. We will put snowplow drivers out in routes. We will have spreaders on. We will have the plows on. So a lot of times we will get calls, people asking if we know something that they don't. But hopefully there won't be any snow on the ground when we're doing this dry run. But we're going to be out pretty much all day. And it's a lot of it's to test our equipment, test our technology. We want to make sure our AVL, everything's working correctly. We don't look at that every day, every month. It becomes very useful during the winter time. Our turn-by-turn routing, we're going to be looking at turning it on and getting it running again. So we just want to make sure that everything is working like we believe it should. We are going to be doing some public outreach. We do have Channel 41 they're going to be on site during the day, running a story on snow training, snow pro. Should we look for that? We'll see if we can't send out more information when we know exactly when. I can't leave without kind of talking about some things that would help us. Like I was mentioning earlier, if there's a lot of cars parked on the street, we can't do a good job. It takes us a lot of time. So when possible, get the cars off the street. It'll help us. It'll help the citizens. Same thing with trash cans, basketball goals, anything that's going to interrupt us getting up and down the road. We haven't had an issue with snow forts the last few years because we just haven't had that much snow. Certainly, if we do get large amounts of snow, we ask they do not build snow forts in the street. We have had times where a snowplow has not seen fort, and it's a little frightening. We don't want kids to be out there playing in it and us not know that it's there because it just looks like a pile of snow to us. Please keep them off the road. We ask people don't shovel or blow snow from your driveway out into the street. Complaints on that were some good citizen has went and blown all the snow off of all the neighbors' driveways, but they blew it right out into the street, and then 75 feet you have snow. And then if you do shovel, please shovel downstream of your snow plowing. Kind of won't be pushing that snow back up into your driveway as we're coming. Like I say, we always appreciate your support. Some things that City Council can do to help is help manage expectations. All in. A lot of it takes time. 24 hours a day when it does snow. Our goal is to get everything done and get out of there. Our guys want to get home and get to bed, get to sleep, rest up. So help if you can help us manage expectations. Showing up for the snow rodeo and rallying our troops is big. Welcome to come out during snow shift. Say something to them or just be there. When that happens, you're obviously welcome to do that. Help educate our public, share our goal. I think it's important to understand that we're going to do our best to make sure that the streets are ready to drive on. But it does take time. It does take cooperation from the public to make sure that the vehicle that they're putting out there, and maybe even the competence of the driver, is able to. And just to help us keep the public informed. Answer any questions like.
Thank you, Sean. I'll start with questions.
I have several questions, and none of them are related. Okay, so I'm gonna jump around. But I appreciate you trying to give me some expectation on what winter's going to be. But anyway, um, emergencies. Could you just briefly talk about if somebody's street hasn't been plowed and they need to call for an ambulance, how you work with public safety?
Very good question. And it's something that does come up. We do work with police and fire. And so whatever the issue may be, if there is an emergency, medical emergency or any other type of emergency, 911 is your best bet. Call them. If they have equipment that's able to get up and down the roads with bad condition. If it's a big snow where they're going to have trouble, they call us and we answer, and then we have our AVL up so we can tell what truck's in the neighborhood. We can get that truck over there. We can get them in and out. So 911 is your best bet, and we'll work with.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. On the wing plows. Now, did you all add those wing plows to existing trucks you already had?
No, that had come up when we started this process because I believe if I remember right, we just had bought like 4 new trucks, and the question came up in City Council: can we go back and retrofit the vehicles that we just bought with wings? And the answer is yes, we can. The problem is have to rebuild the hydraulic system that was just built for the truck that we ordered. And in order to facilitate mounting the wing plow on there and adding all the additional ports to run the wing plow. And it was just a matter of it was too cost prohibitive to do that. And so we made the decision at that point then to just add it to our new vehicles coming in and just order it with plows on it. Since that has happened, all of our trucks have been outfitted.
Oh, okay. Okay. And also, what happens if we get several really big snow? Because that's what I heard at the beginning. What happens if you empty the salt domes and it's, the 15th of December? What do you do?
Well, that scares me a little bit that you'd ask that question. I hope we never have to worry about that. We have been there before. We've run into situations where we were running low on salt, and the problem, we do have a contract with a supplier that will bring us more salt. But the problem is if we're running low on salt, so is everybody else, probably in the area, and we go through salt conservation as much as we can. So we supply salt to district. We have a subdivision that plows snow for us, and so we take them salt. So and so we start. Parks Department, I guess, is another department that uses salt, and so we start having conversations with them about limiting the salt that we. But the nice thing about having 2 salt domes is once one is empty, we can go ahead and order salt and start filling it up. So far we have not had an issue with salt. But we do have neighbors. We have had conversations with them in the past about if this does happen, would we be able to grab some salt and replace it later? Okay with we've got several.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
What happens if you don't use all of the salt? You just save it for the next year, or does it go bad?
Yeah, I like that question. No, it does not go bad. So the nice thing is then in the springtime when we start to fill our domes back up, we just don't spend all of our money. So we just fill them back up, and we use what we got. Budget goes, but it does. The humidity in the air does make it a big rock, but it busts it up and
What happens if you don't use all of your budget? Does it roll over to the next year and you can, or you
We
do?
we get a scolding and then we give it back. Yeah.
Well, that's a bummer. Yeah, no, you guys do a great job. I think I always see you guys out pretty quickly. Thank you.
We've got a really good group of folks, dedicated folks that go out. Appreciate the work.
Sean, first of all, thanks for the presentation. It's always informative, even though I've probably seen this 7 or 8 times. But it's, you know, there's new additions all the time. So that, yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. But usually you tell us how many lane miles we have. I think lane miles is the, and with new streets every year, I mean, 12 months between the presentation, how many miles were you up to?
We're just under 1,100 lane miles right now. We add anywhere from 5 to 10 a year. This past year, I don't have the exact number on me, but it's 2+ miles, lane miles, that we've added. Of course, when housing development is going strong or we're building new roads, it a lot more to that. But you compound that over 10 years, it can add a lot of lane miles and a lot of time it takes to get.
And then how many routes does that 1,100 miles? How many routes do we have? Because when you were talking about, people will log in with a certain route, with a designated route.
I'd have to go back and count them. We have 9 districts, and within those districts, then we start using the alphabet. I think we have somewhere it's over 2 total.
Subscribers and are not divided by it. I mean, it's not going to come up to an equal equation, but it gives you an idea. And then, say I'm a snowplow operator and I'm on a route, of course, and say I turn down the street and there's a car that came in the middle of the night that didn't make it up a hill or just got sideways. So of course I can't plow that street. What notification? I mean, does the snowplow operator have to keep in his mind that there was an obstruction, or is there some place to note on that other than getting at the end and finding, oh, I forgot that street?
Yeah. So the way that typically works is a snowplow driver will call back to the first snow desk and let them know that we have a congested street. And it may be a car in the middle of the road. It may just be cars parked on both sides and we can't get our truck down the road. But then we will, if they call in, we will notify them that it is on our list to get done. If there's a car in the middle of the street, we'll contact the police department.
And then when and I like the clip or the about plowing, shoveling downstream of the plow. But when I tell people that, they say, well, how do I know which direction the plow is going to come from? And is there a science to that? I know on my street, there's only two driveways on the north side and all the other driveways. And so I know what way the plows usually come, but other people, they don't know.
Well, we tell our snowplow drivers to follow the law. So they should be right side of the street. That may or may not be true on some of the older areas of town where there's no houses on one side of the street. They may plow everything over that direction. But typically they're going to plow the right side of the street. So as you normally drive down the road, we would just ask you to pile the snow past the driveway where one would normally be driving.
Okay, I think probably my street, since there is cars parked on the south side, they probably tend to hit the north. I mean, I think that's just the way it is. Can't plow the street. Yeah, but I didn't know if there was. I see it now. Okay. Well, that's all the questions I had. Anybody think of anything else? John, thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, we will talk about the presentation of the capital improvement plan, no tax increase bond project priorities. Michael Park.
Talk about adding lane miles.
Yeah. Yeah, that we are.
Yeah. Actually, we looked at that kind of on average, we're seeing anywhere 1 to 2% adding lane miles when you look over time, similar to our population trajectory, about 1 to 2% growth in our population on average on an annual basis. So actually, this is a little bit early, but I think it's appropriate time where we can have this dialogue on the no tax increase bond transportation project priorities. We're just now getting into the time of year where staff begins working on the next capital improvement plan. And so before we really start down any particular path and recommendations on where to sequence these projects that the voters approved last April, wanted to have the discussion with Public Works Committee. So we'll talk just briefly at a very high level. What is the capital improvement plan, the CIP, that bond election, April 4th this year, what those projects, the transportation projects, again, will be focused on transportation because as you'll see in the presentation, a lot of the other, what I'm calling NTIB, that's the no tax increase bond election, projects have already been added to the CIP. And we really deferred that decision on the road projects, the $98 million worth of transportation infrastructure for this conversation. And to really get your feedback on staff's kind of preliminary recommendation of those project priorities. And those priorities were set based on resources. We'll cover what those are, the influences and factors of how we look for when is the best and most opportune time to carry those projects in the capital improvement plan forward to construction. So the CIP is our planning document. It is in the city's comprehensive plan. It's a 5-year document of all of our fiscally constrained public improvements. So it does include much more than roads. It's water, it's sewer, it's our facilities, it's our parks, buildings. Really any capital improvement asset that has a value exceeding $75,000 would typically fall into the CIP. It is an annually updated plan. And so, as I mentioned, we normally would begin this process around December, have those work sessions with committee in December and January as staff begins to finalize the CIP. And you'll see this as we conclude the presentation tonight, kind of what those steps are in the process. It's then ultimately adopted by the Planning Commission as an amendment to the comprehensive plan, and then adopted by the City Council, and the first year of the CIP is adopted also in the city's budget. And so what we're doing right now is we're talking about the sequence of NTIB projects for the next CIP. Developing that plan for NTIB project delivery, not just for this next CIP, but really kind of beyond. If you recall when we talked about the 2017 CIP sales tax, we sort of laid out a framework for that 15-year program, you know, in 5-year windows of which projects were more important to come before other projects as we collected those sales tax and cash flow those projects up to 2032 and a little bit beyond. And so I do think this is a critical step in our CIP implementation. Again, starting at a high level, we'll continue to work our way down. The CIP is comprised of a lot of different funding sources. So I'm happy to answer questions about other project funds and where the funds come from, but we're really focused on bonds. So we went to the voters for a no tax increase bond issuance, working in our within our debt levy, as opposed to working with the excise tax or the CIP sales tax. There's water and sewer tap funds. There's a lot of different ways that we fund capital projects. Some are more restrictive than others, like the excise tax can only be used on road projects. When it comes to bond projects, their use is limited to the bond questions themselves. And then we go a step further from the bond questions that the voters approve on the ballot to what is it that the city committed to accomplish with those funds. So we have kind of this verbal commitment that the city staff and the city council had arrived on when sizing that bond election. Feel free to interrupt me as I go through this. I don't want to rush it, but I do want to have a good dialogue. And so here's where we are in a normal CIP implementation process. A lot of times we've had these conversations about, well, how do we get a project, right? So we start at a master plan, a very high level of identification of what projects are out there, where are our needs. We look to our strategic plans, the thoroughfare master plan in the case of roadways. We have these project lists that tend to grow. Those lists can come from constituents. You think of like an Olive and Orchard or a Lakewood Way. Other emerging needs. Then we begin to prioritize those lists and those master plans until we have an opportunity like April 4th with a bond issuance. And then we say, okay, of those lists and those master plans, which projects do we want to advance with this funding opportunity? We did that last year. And now we're working to sequence those projects that are now funded. So now that they're fiscally constrained. And then they'll work their way into the CIP and ultimately they'll be delivered. So there were 3 questions on the ballot. One was related to emergency preparedness, $74 million, 7 projects. Within those 7 projects, kind of categorized 22 different initiatives. I've kind of graded those out because those are already showing up in the CIP that the City Council and the Planning Commission adopted last year. Same thing with question related to city facility reinvestment, $14 million, 5 projects, 10 initiatives. All of those have already shown up in the current CIP that has been adopted and published. And as I mentioned, we reserve these other 11 transportation projects all in that 3rd question. Now, not all of them are waiting for this conversation. We did adopt in the CIP the project for city sidewalk, hangar maintenance, airport hangar 2, and some property acquisitions. Those are projects already started along the way. And so this became additional funding necessary to complete those projects, and the sidewalk gap program another example. So I've kind of graded those out as well. Now I'll kind of cover what those other major road projects are: Douglas, Langsford, Lakewood Way, Todd George, all of those. A little more detail, and I'll review the scope. It has been many months since we had gone out in our kind of public dialogue and describing what we would get for that $98 million. There's also some information that go into what you weigh as influential factors of the project itself. You know, looking at what is the impact. You can look at impact based on what kind of population impact does it have, what are the volume of users on the roadway, what is surrounding development opportunity, those sort of things. So Lakewood Way is one project. This is from Woods Chapel to Bolin Road. We had estimated $6.4 million for that improvement. It's to add some turn lanes. We looked at turn lanes down around Jib and Lakewood Court and Executive Lake Center and Jamestown Drive. It's a project to add some multimodal elements to it, sidewalk, add curb and gutter, those sort of things, street lighting. That was the scope of the project that we understood we could accomplish with that budget. And then continuing Lakewood Way from Bolin Road to our North City limits, carries a little bit more traffic, doesn't have the middle school adjacent to it. And so we're still open to some of its scope, whether it's to add paved shoulders or to add curb and gutter and, like a shared use path. We have some alternatives that we'll explore and design. A little less expensive than a $4.4 million budget that we've estimated for this project. But a lot of similarities to Lakewood Way south of Bolin Road. It's a lot more developed south of Bolin Road and a bit more traffic down there. A lot more turn lanes in this particular area too as you drive that corridor. And really, I think Lakewood Way was identified as it's increasingly becoming a bypass for I-470. So its volumes are going up. And if we can take some of those congestion points where you have somebody sitting in a road without a turn lane, if we can mitigate that congestion point by adding turn lanes, we can improve safety. Also improve a lot of the efficiency of those corridors. Langsford Road, a 3rd project we'll talk about. This one really is just access management and turn lanes and safety improvements for majority of what this project will entail. Here we had set aside $5 million for improvements to Langsford Road. And it's one of those where we set a budget and we'll see how much we can get done. There's a lot of complexities with Langsford Road. A number of these intersections are challenging without turn lanes because they're offset T intersections. And it is a heavily traveled corridor. You see, this is twice the amount of traffic that you see on Lakewood Way. And another element of this project is really finish out the construction of Langsford east of Blackwell. It begins to transition into more of a rural context east of Blackwell, so it would be adding the sidewalks and the enclosed storm sewers and building it to the same urban standard that is west of Blackwell. Douglas Street is a project that we'd heard about for a number of years as kind of the last of the gateways that were not funded into downtown. So we're actively working on, Douglas Street north of downtown or 3rd Street west of downtown, and we had approved funding for 3rd Street east of downtown, and we'll be kicking off that project here in the next probably 12 to 24 months. But Douglas south of downtown was not one of those projects that were funded by the 2017 CIP sales tax. It's a relatively small project, about a half mile, a little more. It's just a complete street project. We're not widening Douglas, but it really lacks kind of the amenities of our other urban streets. It's got a lot of sidewalk gaps in it. There's no lighting. And it's a project that we feel like we understood and we heard loud and clear from our residents, our customers, and the city council when that became a priority. George Parkway, this really is that last major arterial that is on the north end of town that has not been improved. It's still a rural with paved shoulders corridor between Woods Chapel and Colburn Road. With announcement of PRI's intention to develop a significant portion of that land, I think it becomes even more critical for us to address that development barrier. But it's not for development. It's one of those, I guess you get the development benefit, but it's one that also has about 10,000 cars a day or more. And it is, as I said, like Lakewood Way, becoming an increasingly used bypass or alternative route for I-470 traffic. And we hear a lot about its congestion during peak hours, commutes up and down Todd George Parkway. And then a very large project and really kind of in tandem with a small project is Sheer Parkway and Longview Boulevard. This would be from Sampson Road to 291 Highway. It's the largest of the projects on the NTIB list at $35 million, and there's about $12 million from the CIP sales tax that was identified for some interim road improvements, just to address some safety issues. So in combination, we're about $47 million for this entire corridor, and then a little bit of additional funds to extend 2 lanes of a future major arterial, kind of creating an alternative route to Sampson Road between Longview and Sheer. This will also set the stage, again, not for PRI, but will mitigate a major safety issue if PRI were to try to develop in the southwest part of the city. This is probably also the longest delivery schedule for a project that we have on the list. We would expect this project to take anywhere from 6 to 7 years from beginning to completion. So talk a little bit about some of the priority considerations. Before I get into this, I just kind of stopped to see if there was any questions on any of those projects. I know I kind of went through the scope pretty quickly, but I did want to do that as a reminder to what we discussed before the election as we presented those. So any questions over those projects? Okay.
This is just like this little trivial question. On Lakewood Way North, okay, to the city limit, has anybody had any discussion with Independence going, we're going to improve this?
We had some coordination meetings with City of Independence. They've had a lot of turnover, though. I don't know if anybody is still at the City of Independence who was part of those conversations. It's something that we would need to have discussion with as Lakewood Way North to the city limits project starts to advance. Because it's going to leave a little piece there that when you look all the way up to 40 Highway, we would have our part improved and then theirs is not. I hate to compare it to like a Lee Summit Road, but Lee Summit Road's in much worse shape, but yet I think we could do some good coordination with Independence if they've got any type of money to bring forward. And theirs is a much smaller segment, obviously, between that commercially developed area where it's been improved up to 40 and then to where they meet our city limits.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right. So these are things that I would consider need to be looked at as we set forward a programming schedule, what the sequencing of these NTIB projects. How are they going to impact the delivery of our other commitments? And I'd mentioned our 2017 CIP sales tax, but there's a lot of other capital projects that we are committed to deliver, whether it's a sewer project or a water project, facility projects. And does the insertion of any of these projects in some way delay another commitment that we've already got? So that's one of the priority considerations we have. Obviously, I think, what is the significance of the project? How many people is it impacting? Is there an existing safety issue that we're trying to address? So categorically, what are the benefits and how do those benefits of the project relate to another project that you're considering? I'll say planning alignment, but as you'll see here, all of these projects align really well with our strategic plan and our comprehensive plan. That's really why I think the city council said move forward with these in a bond election. But some more so than others. Every project has some alignment, but some projects have more alignment than other projects, or they touch on different factors that we really wanted to target. We'll talk a little bit about when to issue bonds. This isn't a cash flow situation like our sales tax. This is a decision, when do we issue debt to carry out these projects? And as far as I can tell in discussion with our finance director, Ms. Worldeman, this isn't really a significant influential factor. There are some decisions that we'll have to make about the timing of issuance. There are periods of time that you don't want to issue debt too far in advance of a project, and you really don't want to wait too far after a project starts before you start issuing debt. But as far as we know right now, there's no constraint to say we need to accelerate the issuance of debt as it relates to these particular projects. There's enough in the NTIB other questions that we can satisfy our debt levy necessity to issue those bonds. And then it's really just kind of gauging the market. When are we going to get the best return on those debt issuances? And that's really working through the finance department. We'll look to see what are our staff resources and our capability to deliver the projects. If we're overwhelmed, nothing gets done. So we'll need to look at what are our resources and kind of put our plan to troop type tasking, see what are our capacities. What is the time and schedule to deliver a project? Like I said, some of these may be a fairly short turnaround from beginning to end, 3-year period, but another project might be 6 to 7 years. And for those really long projects, it's probably wise to start those sooner than later. Then we'll look at what are the complexities of a project, whether the risks of a project not doing it too early. Are there project contingencies? And what I mean by that is, does one project need to happen for another project to succeed? And then are there other factors? Are there opportunities for federal funds that we need to be aware of? Or are there permitting issues or utility relocations that may cause us to sequence one project ahead of another? So this is just, from our current CIP. Orange highlights in our CIP are new projects. So last year when we adopted the CIP, among our bridge, streets, and signals projects, Todd George and Chipman was the lone new project added. I'm not showing you all the other CIP categories. So this is not stormwater, water, sewer, facilities, parks, any of those. We're focused on roadway right now. Some of those other, when we talk about the delivery of other CIP commitments. So I wanted to review what are the other CIP commitments that haven't started yet. It's pretty impressive when you look at our 2017 CIP sales tax. We have started every project we committed in that sales tax initiative, with the exception of the downtown parking garage and Independence Avenue, Chipman to 5th Street. All of the other projects are either done or they're already in the CIP in process, whether they're in design or in construction. And so our commitments that are outstanding are still that downtown parking garage and Independence, just for your awareness as we start looking at adding more projects to the CIP, being those NTIB projects. I'm sure we have a lot of other commitments as it relates to these other categories, stormwater, water, sewer, facilities. And then we have new projects projects that aren't committed yet, but will be emerging projects coming forward. I've identified, or our staff, excuse me, has identified 2 that are likely to emerge in the upcoming CIP. One is a warranted traffic signal at 3rd Street and Bridlewood Peel Drive out on the west side of town. Another is an interest in programming funds for Johnson Street between 2nd Street and 3rd Street. In fact, I think City Council talked about this briefly at their last meeting. And so we're listening. We're saying, okay, these are maybe the next most important projects to try to find funding through various sources, not through bond, but through other sources that we have. But they're also competing with staff resources to get done. So here's a list of those NTIB projects, just put into some matrix that you're familiar with, the way we present some of those benefits, kind of in that consumer report style where you see safety, system capacity, livability, economic development impact, what is the public impact, public demand for these projects, without saying one's more important than another, just kind of an indication of its influence in these various priority considerations. And then below that table is something new that we've added, which is to show how each of those same projects have an alignment with the city's strategic plan and the city's comprehensive plan. And as I mentioned, all of these projects have some alignment, just some have a little more than others. Any question on these slides? I think it's just a point of reference to look at as this is what staff used when we prepared our draft recommendation this evening. I talked about timing of bond issuances. The capacity is there, and we don't have any expectation that we must issue debt right now for these NTIB transportation projects. And we don't need to issue all the debt either. So this really is just when is the market best and when does it fit among the other sequencing priorities. I think we have that capacity to make it happen. Our staff resource availability, that's just a matter of how many people do we have expertise to carry it out. All of these projects would be something that we hire a consultant, so we'll be just doing project management, but it still takes a lot of time and resources. So our draft recommendation was prepared with that knowledge, and if we get different guidance and direction in this conversation, then we'll go back and say, do we have the people necessary to carry it out as you'd like? Or do we need to shuffle some things around? Schedule to deliver. So as I mentioned, some projects short time, some take a long time. And that project timeline is heavily influenced by not just the project length and scope, but what are some of its complexities? Is there a lot of properties to acquire? Property acquisition takes a long time. Some of them, like Shear, have some very major utilities to work on that are in conflict that we know we'll need to move. And then others, it might just be permitting. So, if we have experienced before, you get through state historical permitting issues that can draw a project out for many months to years. And some of these projects are more likely than less likely to experience some of those type of challenges. Other risks that you would look at is what is the public disruption? What happens if we defer that improvement? If, for example, we have a known safety issue out on Langsford Road with left turns and there's crash patterns, and the longer we wait, the more there is that public cost to those incidences continuing. So I think that was part of our consideration and how we prioritize these projects, as well as that significance of the project benefits, going back to those matrices. Project contingencies. I don't know that there's a lot of project contingencies with this list of projects. We've already kind of paired together that Longview and Shear Road project. I would think the contingencies are more so related to development contingent on projects being done. So you think of the PRI projects. Those really cannot advance until the major infrastructure is in place. And for our case, that would be Todd George Parkway or Shear Parkway. And then other factors are just like if we've got a funding cycle where we think a project will compete, can we match up the federal fiscal year where those funds would be available with the project delivery? There could be other coordination with maintenance cycles that may make a project more advantageous to accelerate or to defer to maximize the life cycle of that investment. I think like a mill and overlay, if we put down several $100,000 in a roadway, that buys us additional time. Is it makes sense to go ahead and then use that life that we just invested or to accelerate a project before it comes to that condition where it needs a mill and overlay. So now I'll get to our draft recommendation, really looking at, I'll just kind of reveal, all of the projects show up in this 5-year CIP, but some of them show up earlier in the CIP while other projects show up latter part of the CIP where it's really just starting design and then we'll carry forward the construction beyond this 5-year window. Those that we accelerated in the CIP are Douglas Street, 4th to Blue Parkway, Shear Road Phase 1, Ward 291, Shear Phase 2, and Longview. And then, as you'll see in the next charts, where we start to blend into some of the longer term projects, but they're all being scoped. And so I think we look into the next, and maybe that's easier to talk from on these next slides. So this is how you would normally see the presentation of a CIP, where we're looking at the fiscal year budgeting of a project. And you can see early in those, they're smaller dollars. It's usually your design work or your pre-construction work. And then the larger dollar amounts are your construction activity. We've tried to, although in a normal CIP, these would just be alphabetical. Our staff has presented these in a way that look more sequential. So you can see that Douglas, Shear, then next in that line would be Langsford Road, then moving down Lakewood Way, and then Todd George Parkway is among the last of the projects that we would sequence. As part of this sequencing, we've made some other decisions, which is to push off the 2017 CIP sales tax project for Independence Avenue. It was kind of in schedule to start to show up now in this kind of middle period of that 15-year program. But to make staff resource available to carry out the NTIB projects, we think it'd be best to push that one off a little bit further later. It has some unique challenges with it as it goes right next to a cemetery, and we think it could take a long time to deliver. We also haven't heard the same public demands for Independence as we have some of the other projects. One that you would also see, it's not NTIB related, but I did want to mention because these are the public commitments and those that are more emerging. We've identified those with the bold and italic text. Johnson Street, we've kind of shown in there. 3rd and Bridlewood, we've shown in there as well. And then the downtown parking garage, we've actually looked at accelerating that several years. As we know, the downtown Market Plaza project is starting to really move forward. Construction starting very soon. We do think that there could be some parking demand now that decisions are made, close Green Street, isolating that garage for its purposes in support of the downtown Market Plaza for the remainder of downtown, where they might start to want that garage sooner than later. Previous committee direction was to push that garage out to the final years of that 15-year program. But I think, not everything works in a silo. So as downtown Market Plaza is now advancing and how it has been scoped, we think that the importance of that garage is probably a little greater than it was before, and delivering that sooner. So you'll see some things shuffling around a little bit here. Another way of presenting all of those same projects in the same order that they were under the fiscal year finance table would be to show this more on a calendar year basis. And what we're trying to show here is just how the projects would sequence based on activity. What's in green are what I consider pre-construction activities. Those are your right-of-way acquisition, your design services, perhaps some of your utility relocation work. And then what's in orange is your actual construction activity. So kind of pre-construction, then construction. It's just another way to graphically illustrate how some of these projects would come forward and when they might come forward, because I think it's difficult sometimes for our audience to read a financial table than it is just to see more of a diagram of how certain activities would come forward under a calendar year schedule. Questions on where we're at right now? Back to discuss.
Talking about the garage, and I understand the argument. Where is the proposed placement for that? Over by that lot we own across from Dairy Queen?
There's a couple alternatives, so we haven't really boxed ourselves in, but we did take a first phase approach when we acquired property and built a surface lot right at 4th and Main. If we were to acquire additional property, there's an adjacent private parking lot. That is a size of parcel suitable for a garage similar to or equivalent to what we have right across the parking lot here, City Hall Garage. So that would be a space. When we did our downtown parking study, an alternate location would be actually on the west side of the tracks. I don't know if it's as, I don't know if it would be as much in demand as a garage on the east side, like at 4th and Main, but there is a location where the city has surface parking that could also be used for a garage location.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Staying with the parking garage.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you anything that that I haven't already mentioned, that I'm just a little leery accelerating it this fast, because the unknown is how much parking we're going to generate from the plaza. And I mean, it has to be mentioned. It's reality. A lot of people don't park in the parking garage, and and again, I've said this before. I'm a little fearful if we move it too far up, we're going to have, without anything going on. There's going to be periods that there won't be a lot going on, and I imagine that this parking garage will be, there'll be times it'll be full of capacity, and the other parking garage would not get as much business because people just won't walk that far. And so as Councilmember Edson was asking about a possible location, that's my only drawback, is that we would have a parking garage that would be half full, 3/4 full, and another one that would not see any. People tend to park where it's closest. Of course, that's going to create a problem in itself, because then they'd be parking on residential street, where there's not parking spots. So I just wanted to, full disclosure, just put that out there. To accelerate it that fast before we get, I know we have a construction calendar for the Market Plaza, but just to do it too early,
This is great feedback. This is what we're seeking here. So
yeah, I don't want, like I said, a half full, 3/4 full parking garage and then empty parking garage, because and there are people that can't walk that far. I mean, it's not very far, but they said, wow, I'll have to figure out something to park in the medical building, walk across the street type.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Well, my other thought is, if we're building a second garage for the people who are downtown but not necessarily at Market Plaza, well, those are the people who aren't parking in our garage we have now.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, why are we building the second parking garage?
Well, these are all great comments, and those projects are also what we consider cash flowed. So it is to our advantage if we continue to push that off. It's not a cheap investment.
Oh yeah, did you have a comment?
Thank you. How much of the parking garage? Well, okay, for one, can it go up any? Is it
this one?
Mm-hmm.
No, it cannot. It has no capability to go additional floors up.
What would need to happen for that to happen? It's just, it won't ever happen.
I don't want to say it would never happen, but it structurally was not designed to go vertical. It would probably be a reconstruction of that garage. It was a decision made. Actually, it was conceptually thought to go up another 2, but when we got into construction, there was not sufficient funds, so it was scoped back down to a 3 without an ability structurally to go up as it would once been planned.
Okay. And then after AT&T starts parking in there, have they already started? How much
Not
of
to
it?
my knowledge. I don't believe AT&T's using the space. I haven't seen their presence in there.
I'll just say from AT&T employee perspective out there, I've seen them kind of hit or miss, go in the parking garage and not. As far as their any of their work trucks or their work vehicles or anything like that, they won't be parking those in the parking garage.
Okay, I thought they were, but okay, that's good.
You're probably thinking of their replacement parking spaces.
Mm-hmm.
No, the garage was ruled out as one of the locations for the replacement
okay.
parking.
Okay,
There will
that's
be
good to know.
alternative parking provided for those, I'll just hypothetically 30 spaces.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then, yeah, okay, thank you.
This is good feedback, and like I said, just kind of reminding those that are highlighted in yellow, those are the NTIB projects that we're putting forward under this kind of sequence. The bolded italicized ones are either the 2017 remaining CIP commitments or emerging projects that we've already identified.
And really, I've got, I don't like to tell stories, and I don't know this woman, but I do have a perfect example. During the Oktoberfest volunteer event, came late. She had a designated time. And she looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, did you have to drive around and find a parking place because everything was blocked off?" And I said, "No." I said, she said it took her 20 minutes to park and walk to the volunteer event. So she said, "Where did you park?" I said, "The parking garage." She said, "How long did it take you?" I said, 5 minutes. "Oh, I didn't think about that." So that's where, I don't know where she parked. She may have parked at CVS. It took her 20 minutes to get to downtown. I don't know. I didn't ask her. But that's just an example that people, it's not an option for a lot of people, or they think it's farther than what it actually is. That's the sad fact, yeah.
Appreciate the feedback on that. If there's any feedback on the NTIB projects, we'll welcome that. Let me wrap up our next step slide, which I think is the last thing we have, and then big questions, continued dialogue. So we'll continue to prepare the CIP, and if we need additional work sessions before our normal process of presenting our draft to the Public Works Committee, we welcome that. We expect an annual License Tax Committee meeting in December. It's a pretty typical time frame. We'll bring those draft CIPs to Public Works Committee until we get a recommendation. After that recommendation, there'll be a report out to the Wellness Commission. So we're meeting the Livable Streets Resolution policy conditions. The license tax report will go to the City Council. As I mentioned, we'll have a public hearing at Planning Commission. The commission will read a resolution to adopt the CIP into the comp plan. And then we will have a resolution before the City Council, and it will adopt the CIP as well. And then we typically sync that up with the city's budget so that it's read about the same time that the city's budget is ready to be adopted. With that discussion of questions, I think I'll leave it back on the slide here. It's probably easiest to reference all the projects we're talking about in our proposed priorities.
I do have an additional question about funding. And would any of these projects probably be stretched? I'm thinking maybe Todd George would be one of these that Mark could help us with, because that's more of a region. Todd George, once the PRA properties begin development, that's going to be a regional.
Actually, several of these projects will be of SAB applications for the next funding round. So most of the MARC federal funding programs, your Surface Transportation Program, earlier tonight you had Transportation Alternatives Program, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program. All of these programs of federal funding go through a 2-year cycle, federal funding cycle. That cycle opens up after the new year, and they'll start to do an open call for projects. We will be submitting a number of these projects for federal funds. We have submitted before on SHEER. And sometimes we'll do that without any expectation of getting funds, just to get some name recognition to a project so that the next time we apply, they start to see the same project repetitively. I don't know if it actually influences their decision or not, but we also then have a project application kind of ready to resubmit. Todd George is a good one too, that would qualify as a regionally significant project. But then under some of the other federal funding programs, like a Ward Road, who got Transportation Alternatives program funding, a Douglas Street would fit right in, or possibly even a Lakewood Way. And so almost all of these projects could fit a federal funding program. How well they compete, I don't know, but we try. So we always submit an application for them.
As always, we'll advocate where.
General feedback is on the right track, with some other maybe direction or guidance on the downtown parking garage. But with regard to NTIB projects, no major red flags here, no opposition or conflicts that you see.
And then if the consensus is to delay the parking garage for a little while, would that funding automatically go to and move up something else?
It may. I mean, when we see that decision, it wouldn't be a funding consequence, because I said it's a different funding pot than the other projects we're talking about. The bond projects funded by a bond issue, so there's not a cash flow issue. It would be from the 2017 CIP sales tax, which is restricted by the amount of cash we've collected year after year in that sales tax. And so it's more than likely what we would do is just shift that over towards the latter years back to where it was originally, directed by Public Works Committee and Council to put that at the last 5-year period, and to see whether or not that frees up additional staff capacity to bring on another project or to advance one of the NTIB projects a little earlier, if that's the case. But again, I don't want to be so repetitive. This is just the bridge, streets, and signals category. It may be that if we move downtown parking garage, which is more of a facility project, what that does is allow for one of our project managers working out of development services on facility projects, allows them to accelerate some of those facility project activities, as opposed to deferring some of that off a little bit later.
Okay.
Great dialogue. I appreciate your time.
We appreciate there's a lot of work in here, but I too like the graphics. Thank you, Michael. The next up, we will have the presentation of the Water Master Plan and a team event, looks like. See Mr. Stoffler here, kind of hiding back there.
He's hiding. I apologize. I clearly did not bring enough slides.
Jeff Thornton.
Jeff Thorne, Deputy Director, Water Utilities. All right, so we have been undergoing a great deal of high-level planning, water utility. You've seen before you previously the wastewater master plan. We're following on here with the water master plan. Our engineering group and the project led by Burns and McDonald and Ryan Scott here worked together to put together a water master plan for the city of Lee's Summit Water Utilities. A little bit of scope and history on this. The prior plan was completed in 2006, so it's aged. Past when we would normally, that was true of the water plan also. Needed to get redos of it done, so we needed to push this forward. The scope of our planning project was a model creation and calibration, a level of service review, some growth projections so that we can put together plans for 5 and 20-year planning periods. We also looked at a supply projection. So the overall supply of water that we city, which we purchased from Independence in Kansas City on a 50-year planning period. Some distribution planning, evaluation of our storage, and ultimately capital improvements planning. And if you saw on, Michael covered the capital improvements plan a lot, and even on the first slide was the thoroughfare master plan. Use that in this also. So on our master planning process, we as we're looking at facilities, building a hydraulic model. Ryan and his team went out and did a bunch of flow monitoring in our system. Specific days where we were tracking what we were bringing in, pumping out, the pressures in our systems and all of that, so that we properly calibrate a model and look at the operational modes of our system as it goes. Our system is actually 2 systems on the water side, system in the south system, pressure zones. So that splits roughly at Strother Road. So as we're building our model and that kind of stuff, we have to consider basically 2 pressure zones operate pretty much independently of each other as we design our systems and as we look. We looked at the level of service for our systems. That's maximum pressures we like to see in the system, fire flow constraints, storage based on that. In some cases, our contracts have storage requirements in it, so we want to have the contractual requirements in there. And we went through a diurnal analysis. Diurnal, 2 peaks. So you get up in the morning, everybody gets up, they use water, they all go to work, water usage comes down, they come home. Diurnal. So we looked at the diurnal analysis and we compared what we collected in the field on the given day that we were doing our monitoring to what we brought in and out, and we tried to balance up our model. That was a lot of fun because we had a good time with Ryan. We apparently had a valve open between north and south systems, and we couldn't make everything. It was brutal. We had a lot of conversation. Led us to send crews to the field to talk about this. It was, what is going on? The water isn't where it's supposed to be. And we found a valve open along Struther Road that was sending water from the south to the north. So we could have more water here that we're using in the north, but we don't show us bringing it in, what's happening. And it was very interesting and quite frustrating at the time. But when we got done, we have a model that's calibrated to the existing system, right? So we have a digital twin, an electronic twin of our system that we can model off of. So when a development comes in and we're talking about fire flows, we're looking at water usage and that kind of stuff, we can check to see what we're going to do. If we want to do something in operations and we're like, hey, let's run it once here first so that we don't spike pressures, break mains, something like that. So we've been doing a lot of that kind of work in here. We've also been looking at it, using it to optimize how we operate our system going forward. And it's been very useful even so far. So you get a model that's calibrated to the existing system. And then we want to look at loading the future projections. We worked heavily with the comprehensive plan. We looked at, when we were looking at where lines go with the thoroughfare master plan, we looked at the future population growth. And then we looked at what our water usage was and what the water usage trend has been both regionally and nationally to see how we're lining up with that. And we projected the population growth with that water usage to determine what we needed to do water use forward. Put that water use across the band areas. So see the colorful map there, that colorful map once again came from the comp plan. So we looked at where we thought growth was going to happen and timelines was going to happen and placed the loading into that system that way so that you can then determine what lines need to be what size and how the system reacts to those loads coming on. You'll note that this includes PRI ground and that kind of stuff. In our previous plans with PRI not really be interested in doing that, we held them off, and we've looked at it with and without. With them looking to move forward now and through our next 20-year and especially our 50-year projections, we included them in. So you get to supply planning. We have 32.5 million gallons per day under contract. The red dotted line as it goes up is the projection based on the comp plan. It's a fairly aggressive growth projection. If you consider the yellow line to the right there, what its slope is, that was the actual growth rate from 2010 to 2020. Okay? So the comp plan growth rate is pretty aggressive, but we held it through the 20 years because that is the city's adopted comp plan. Now going out past that, we could continue it, the black line. We could look at what the previous growth was for the last 10 years, or maybe do something in between. We chose to do something in between. It's still feel pretty conservative, but it gives us a planning on when we need to buy more supply. So you're saying, Jeff, what's that mean? The red line crosses out of the blue lines. That is where theoretically we peak out our supply. That's where we're in need of new water. So this program says, hey, when do we do it? How do we do that? Where do we get that water? So that's part of our CIP planning, our TAP planning, our funding models. So we looked at several options to get additional water. We met with water suppliers, our independents, Kansas City, Tri-County, talked to them about what we thought we might get out of those systems. Looked at processes and projects to what the cost of that would be so that we could put it in the appropriate years to inform our funding mechanisms, our TAP fee, our cost of service for construction, those types of things. so that we have a plan on when to do this and funding to do it when it gets there. As you might expect, purchasing water is a negotiation between governmental entities. It takes a minute. So we're trying to plan ahead so we know what's coming on so we can start those conversations in a timely fashion. The other part of our CIP planning was looking at where do the new mains go. We looked at this all over the place. Now, it's schematic, right? This is 291, 150 down in the southeast quadrant. These are based on where major roads would go in the thoroughfare master plan. Now, we're not saying the roads are going to go exactly there. People that come in and develop determine where those roads go. What we are saying is when that road goes in, we need a line. In this case, it's a 12-inch diameter line. That's not much over the 8 that they normally put in. But if they don't need it, it might cost us to do some upsizing and some of that kind of stuff. So we looked at some of that, and we planned that so that it shows up in our tap fees. Now, we don't want to put them all in the tap fees because it drive the tap fee way up, and we don't put in all these lines. A lot of times the developers do. But we do manage to do upsize on some of them. So we planned on it in that fashion. So we created a project that has a CIP planning for basically every line along every major thoroughfare as identified in the thoroughfare master plan. So we had project deliverables on this. We had a new water model calibrated to our system. Based our growth and density on the comp plan, did our water supply needs for the next 50 years. And we created CIP projects to inform development so they know what's happening, and also our cost of service model and tap fees. So those projects that fall outside of development, we have costs on, and we happy to take any questions you might.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions?
Need something hard. Ryan's here. I hate to leave without answering the question.
Looks good, Jeff. I mean, of course, I've seen this before, but the one thing about it, if development ever starts rising again, water is going to be, infrastructure is going to be one of the main predicates, or it is going to be the predicate, actually. I think we've got a good plan. When you were talking about partnering with or negotiating with other water suppliers, I noticed it went to 2062. Is that a 40-year plan? I mean, that we 22 to 62? What's the magic number about 2062?
I don't know. There's a magic number at 2062. We looked at it out to 50 years total. Graphic, I just had it after. But it's just something that takes a minute, and we want to have that projection. Now, as I said before, from the last version of this to this one, quite a bit of time passed. We'll revisit this a little bit more frequently. We'll also be looking at those growth trends and that kind of stuff. For this document, just passed a comp plan. We can make adjustments, obviously, as we didn't quite hit that goal. All right, look at this one, and make sure that we're so that we get these things programmed in a time.
And then you mentioned Tri-County and Kansas City Water Department. You didn't mention Independence.
Yes, we Independence. We met with them also.
Okay.
We talked to them about it. Obviously, like I tell you, pretty much anytime I talk to you, we buy our first 7.5 from it.
Those are our three. Do we use Tri-County more as an emergency response?
Tri-County right now is strictly an emergency for us. There are several, and as we look at how we prioritize these in the plans, if you go into that section, we looked at whether or not these would upset our contract requirements with some of our other purchasers, some of our other suppliers that we purchase from. Kansas City specifically has some pretty strict language on can and cannot do contract, and it would change our rate. So we want to be very careful of that. Got still a lot of years on that.
Don't make Kansas City mad.
If you do, it's got to be worth it.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Jeff. I think that I think that pretty well sums it up. So good plan. Very good. So then the next item is a resolution approving the strategic strategic plan for the city of Lee Summit Water Utilities. We need to vote on that. Or just
That
move
this is the water master plan's water master plan. The strategic plan is a separate item.
Okay, yeah, all right, we'll go right into that then. Okay. Oh, I see Pat's here, yeah, I should have known, yeah, hi Pat.
Excuse me, so we'll jump right into that if we can. So tonight we're here to talk about the water utilities strategic plan. So obviously the city has the strategic plan Ignite. When I get back to the tactics section, you'll see how the two plans basically align. But I'm here to talk about the plan for the water utility. So in the presentation tonight, I'm going to kind of give an overview of the process that we went through to develop the strategic plan, look at the contents, talk about the Water Utility Advisory Board and their input along the way. And then I'm going to talk about a companion document called the Tactical Plan, which takes those strategies and really looks at the implementation. We have it as feedback, but have any feedback or questions from you as a group, then the approval process would be tonight and then the city council. Start with an overview. And the last strategic plan for the water utilities completed in 2011. And strategic plans have changed a little bit from 11 for utilities, and we really looked at the state of the industry. And if you look at some of the other major strategic plans that have been completed recently, a lot's the same, but things have changed a little bit in that you're really looking to have an educational component. And you look at the strategic plan itself, it's got that educational component within there. And it's really meant to be a document that also generates confidence within your ratepayers, within the utility payers within there. A lot of input was taken for this strategic plan itself. It started back in 2022, looking at customer surveys, getting their input. Utility is historically completed customer surveys, but again, picked it up in 2022. Completed an employee survey. What do they think about the utility itself? What are they saying about it? Any issues, satisfaction, items of that nature? And when you look at some of the items and goals within the strategic plan, you certainly see employee retention a piece of that. We actually did an update to the utility assessment itself. So what we did in early 2023, we compared the utility and some industry standards to benchmarks that exist by the American Waterworks Association. So we looked at number of break rates on water mains, overflows on the sanitary sewer system, how many employees do you have compared to customer and the size of your utility, and did a benchmarking against what the standards are. Came back and did another customer survey in 2023. There is a little bit, if you look at kind of the surveys over time, a little bit of an effect, a COVID effect, I'll call it on there, just in the way people answer questions and what they did. So we followed back up with a 2023. We had a number of meetings with the Water Utility Advisory Board. We certainly went through the same process that I'm talking about tonight with them, walked through 2011 plan, what had been implemented, where everything was from the 2011 plan. Certainly talked through that assessment and really had them help formulate these goals and strategies for the utility itself. And then finally, a number of meetings with what I'm calling water utilities leadership. That would be the leaders within the utility itself, as well as Mr. Dunning and Mr. Elam, city manager. In addition to that, a survey was sent beginning of 2023 out to the council members themselves. It was an anonymous survey, really looking to get feedback again on, what are the customers, what are you hearing from the customers themselves? What are those stakeholders basically saying, confidence, needs, things of that nature. Kind of moving to content of the strategic plan itself, and really starts with kind of what the objectives are with that strategic plan. As explained, we've gone through great lengths to really incorporate those customer expectations in future goals. What do the customers want the utility to provide, at what level, what cost, things of that nature. I really worked on the missions, vision, and value of the utility itself, looking at the organizational attributes, goals, and strategies, communicating those accomplishments. We talked about where strategic plans are today and the need to really talk about the accomplishments and really some of the challenges as well of the utility, and then look to the future to develop this plan. So when you look at the contents of the strategic plan for the utility, it starts with a message from the director, a message from Mark, really introducing that strategic plan, talks about the team that was used to generate it, talked about the process that I'm talking about tonight, tells the story of the utility. How is it organized? How does it operate? So your users have a better understanding of the utility itself. Talks about those accomplishments and challenges, shows the plan for the future, and then certainly the engagement along the way. So when we develop the strategic plan with the utility, really what we're looking at are these attributes of an effective utility. That's what was done in 2011, what's done today. Those 10 attributes that I'll talk about are within each box, and we've kind of grouped them. So under engineering and facilities, there's water adequacy, infrastructure stability, community sustainability. I'm not going to read them all for you, but you certainly see the 10 attributes in the boxes below and really how we've organized those. The reason we've done it that way is to be able to take these attributes of a effective utility, then use that to formulate both the goals and the strategies of the strategic plan itself. So I've got a series of slides that really talk about those goals and strategies. So what you see in front of you listed across the top are the goals. So this first goal they have is to deliver infrastructure and operational excellence. And then you see the 9 strategies that have been developed as a part of this strategic plan. And you look at this individual category, the strategies are to main assets to provide reliable distribution and delivery of drinking water. Proactively maintain assets to provide reliable sewer collection and conveyance. Manage the utility in a manner that maximize the continuity of service to the users. Enhance that operational efficiency and level of service. So you kind of get the feel for those strategies that fall under that goal itself. The second goal is really to promote that community and natural resource sustainability. So again, we're looking to maintain that water supply and sewage treatment capacity. And it's nice that Jeff just talked about the water master plan in front of here, because that's what master plan do. He talked about water supply and certainly continue to be forward looking on the water and sewer supply. Look to those future expansion areas and make sure you're doing that as your ongoing strategies. Kind of go a step beyond that. Trend your energy usage and find ways to reduce that energy consumption if you can. Track that annual water usage and loss to make sure you're continuing to run the utility effective manner. And then where it makes sense, look at alternative energy resources where it's economically beneficial within. The next piece or the next goal is to provide that responsive customer service. And so again, the strategies within there are looking at being very customer focused and making sure the values of the utility reflect the values of those customers. Make sure the organization is being trained in a way that it conveys and make sure that's happening. Build that trust within the community. Expand that customer education, and there are quite a bit on helping to educate the customers both on the rates and what that rate setting process looks like, and then looking at all of the stakeholders within the community and how can the utility partner with them and again enhance that public trust. Certainly a big piece moving forward is that development of that utility workforce, and so really looking at minimizing job vacancies, increasing, becoming that employer of choice, within the community itself. Enhance that employee satisfaction. Provide comprehensive approach to training and skills to develop those employees, and then conduct outreach to really drive that workforce recruitment as we need to look at succession planning within a utility. And finally, the financial side of it, maintaining that financial stability of the utility. And if you were to flip back to that 2011 plan, there was a lot in having a utility that was much more financially stable, and certainly a lot's been accomplished. But underneath that, moving forward, to really manage that debt and cash reserves to ensure that you're executing long-range and short-range plans for the utilities, and then communicate those budgets to make sure they're aligning with the priorities of the community. So I mentioned the Water Utility Advisory Board, and so we worked with them through a series of 4 meetings, and they spent a lot of time with us looking at all those surveys we talked about, what was important, getting that feedback, and then helped us develop some of these strategies. And so you see all the strategies that I outlined, and what we really wanted to work hard with them to do is to get their input, and these are both businesses and residents within the community, on what's most important to you. And I'll kind of use the next slide to talk about that for a minute. And so when you look at what the Water Utility Advisory Board's priorities were, they were to proactively maintain assets to provide clean, safe water, to develop an annual comprehensive budget that accurately projects department requirements. They didn't want surprises within budgets moving forward. Keep the rates and fees aligned with the level of service goals. Proactively maintain those assets and then invest in resiliency for key assets. So you could kind of see what their focus was, at least continue with what we have, make sure you're doing it in a cost-effective and a very communicative communicative manner. And then I talked about a companion document. That really takes now these strategies, turns them into individual tactics. And so we talk about the strategic plan on the left side, that was educational, it was engaging, it makes sure you're aligning with the priorities of the community. And then for the tactical plan, what we're looking to do is to take each one of those strategies and then have very specific benchmark items to move forward. This is really that roadmap moving forward that you have. And we want to make sure those tactics are accountable, and then they've got a time associated with each one of them. So I'll just give you a few examples of that. So start with this single example, which from the strategic plan, that line 1, the goal was to deliver infrastructure and operational excellence. Strategy is 1.1 from the strategic plan, which is protect and maintain water quality in accordance with the state and federal regulatory requirements. And then the tactics, there's been 4 sub-tactics for that one strategy. So adopt a online portal solution for backflow prevention, to finalize the backflow prevention program cost allocation, to review and update the city code of ordinances regards to backflow prevention, and then create a reporting tool that's visible to management staff and improves tracking of current water quality. So you can see individual tactics. And you'll notice as you work your way across that table, each of the tactics, a planning period's been assigned. So short term is 0 to 2 years, midterm 3 to 5, and then long term 5+ years. The plan then, the tactical plan then also looks at, are there other city departments that have to support this engagement? What are those requirements? Who's really responsible for it? And then you see finally here that alignment with the Ignite strategic plan of the city itself. So you look at these individual, it basically takes it down to that level. I've given all of these. I don't intend to kind of run through some of the major ones within here, but a few of them that I want to point out. Strategy 1.4, which was to proactively maintain assets to provide reliable sewer collection and conveyance. You'll notice a tactic underneath there is to evaluate the repair of private laterals located within the right-of-way. I know that has been a topic for a number of constituents within the city, so there is a tactic. Take a further deeper dive into that and then help make decisions as it relates to that. Again, I don't want to hit all of them, but I want to hit some of them that I know that are certainly been an issue in the past. A promotion of community and natural resource sustainability, again, looking at like 2.4 to develop a program for leak detection to make sure that the water that comes into the city is being used by customers and not simply leaking from the system itself. We continue to look at making sure we have a sustainable practice within the city. And then you'll see tactics in 3 on providing responsive customer care. Again, looking for that annual customer survey to make sure that input or feedback is coming back as a tactic. And then an annual review of payment assistant programs. It's been talked about a number of times, and just continually to look at what the need may be for items like that. A number of tactics on workforce development. Again, what we're trying to do with this is encourage that staff to really pursue career advancement within the utility itself, making sure that topics that are being talked about with supervisors are designed to promote that employee job satisfaction, and then reviewing that training to really promote that workforce within. And then tactics around number 5 would be responsive customer care. Again, maintaining that rolling 5-year capital improvement plan so you always have a better view or image of what's coming up. And then finding better ways to continue to communicate and display the water utilities financial health reporting metrics within. So I just wanted to kind of highlight each of those key, and this is the point where you either give me some feedback or I can answer questions that you may have.
Thank you, Pat. I would open it up for comments, questions.
I appreciate the presentation. I really, I'm glad that the tactic about the laterals was, I think that's great. I also appreciate your attention to workforce. That's always an issue. So thank you. I appreciate that.
And I would echo the private laterals too. That's will be a good addition to the discussion. That is an item that does come up. Constituent. A lot. Mia, did you have any? Well, very good presentation.
Thank you.
Forward, thank you very much. That leads us into roundtable. Any roundtable from the? Oh, yeah, I did ask that, didn't I? We do need to read the resolution and vote on it, right?
To recommend the resolution forward for approval by the city council.
Yes, I would look for a motion, yeah, thank you.
Chair, I would recommend to council for approval 2023-5875, a resolution approving the 2023 strategic plan for the city of Lee Summit Water Utilities Department.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Edson, a second by Councilmember Pryor to send the resolution approving the 2023 strategic plan for the city of Lee Summit Water Utilities Department to the full council with a recommendation of approval. No discussion. Roll call, please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Edson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor.
Aye.
Thank you. That's 3 ayes, moving the resolution to the full council. Next up is roundtable. Any roundtable from council members?
I have a comment, but I'll defer till after Mr. Thorne. He wanted to give an update on McClendon Ditch.
Okay.
Jeff Thorne, Deputy Director, Water Utilities. The clearing you noted along 50 Highway is for the bore underneath the highway for that work. So yeah, the contractor's out there currently. It's at the very upper end of our project, so that'll tie that project out. That said, we are still doing construction on that project further downstream. Obviously, Murray Road is closed and will be case. When that is done, we will proceed on to 3rd Street, closed for about 30 days across that. So that work will be coming on of November.
Where on 3rd Street is the?
It's 3rd Street, just immediately east of Murray. There's a box culvert right there where that stream comes through. Our sewer follows that through. We looked at trying to net so many utilities, box culvert and everything else. By the time they went through and dug down to identify the utilities, they cut the street anyway. So that's the way we're rolling. Heads up on that. Obviously, there'll be the standard notifications on it, but it's coming. I just want to put it out there.
I have noticed the tree clearing there.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thorne.
The only other, I just remind everybody, this Saturday is also our Sweep the Summit fall event. So there's opportunities if you go to Sweep the Summit on the city's website. You can sign up for Stream Team or Street Clean, either of those 2 events. And then we also have our Fall Recycle Fest that will be hosted by our contractor, KC Dumpster. Same location though, out at the operations facility. Same time periods, 8 in the morning till roughly noon. The Stream Clean and Stream Team and Street Clean events are both right at 10 o'clock. So those, the street cleanup, you show up at the operations facility where you'll get your vest and your bags and then go out and clean. The stream, show up on site at the park, and we'll have staff there to help organize the stream pickup. So just as a reminder, those are this Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I will adjourn this meeting at 6:45. What time?